My name is Tina Eckert. I work for the Burrell's Luce office in Chicago. I've been with Burrell's Luce for 15 years now, and this is my first time attending the Counselor's Academy. So obviously, it's a tough ticket to get around the office, and when my boss, Jonna Burt, called me and said that she was unable to make the event, I jumped at the chance, and I'm having a fantastic time. And I'd like to personally thank all the people who organized and helped bring the event today and all the great activities together for us. Clap, clap. Our next speaker is Bradley E. Wilson, Chief Marketing Officer for Travelocity North America. Wilson has helped build, launch, and grow some of the most recognizable consumer brands on the web today. As CMO, he is responsible for brand strategy, customer lifecycle management, and marketing communications for Travelocity North America. He is also charged with keeping up with the roaming Gnome throughout all of his adventures. Please help me welcome Bradley.
Thank you. You guys hear me back there? Sarah, good? Excellent. Well, thank you. Thanks for that introduction, Tina. I'm really grateful to be here today. One, because I love coming back to Austin. I went to university here a long time ago. In fact, we've got some students from the College of Charleston here. We were just having a conversation. I was asking about careers and why PR, and you know, I had Chris, right? Chris tell me, he said, well, you know, gosh, I took it through a career survey, and I grew up with social media, and I just remarked, I was like, gosh, I didn't even go to college with a cell phone. To which Erica replied, she's like, well, surely you had a whiteboard. So, but thanks for having me. I really think this is a great forum. You know, truth be told, someone asked me outside, you know, how did I get to the position I'm in today, and I sort of shared my background. And you know, full transparency, PR is certainly not, certainly one of the weaker points in my arsenal. And I've come to really appreciate, you know, all the good work you guys do in your profession throughout the years. And I think your jobs are hard. I think, you know, with the advent of mobility and social media, I think it's really difficult to develop that authentic voice of a story and really break through. And so I'm very grateful for this forum, and I'm looking forward to sharing some ideas. But I do have some administrative tasks at first. So I need a babysitter. We're going to pass around the roaming Gnome, and each of you get to take a picture, create a vine, and you know, create a clever caption. And you know, we'll take a look on social media, and we'll be able to we'll send you a gift for the most clever caption. How about that? All right, let's see if this thing works here. And we like to brag about these things a little bit. So 94% of people actually recognize that guy. And what's even more impressive that I find is remarkable is 71% can actually link them to Travelocity. And you know, we actually study that from a brand equity perspective. And I know you guys watch those things day in and day out, but those are right up there with the marks of the Gecko Gecko. And I can assure you they spend far more money in their marketing arsenal than we certainly do. But great character. I always have a lot of fun traveling with them. And of course, hashtag go and smell the roses as you create your captions, please. Cool. All right, so I think we got 45 minutes. So we'll cover a couple things. So one, I thought it'd be useful just to kind of share the travel landscape today. You know, like a lot of industry, it's being massively disrupted right now through mobile computing, and certainly Google's in that mix. But I thought it'd be useful just to talk about some of the consumer trends that we're seeing, some of the competitive nuances, and some of the things that we're doing to respond to that. By nature of what we're calling roaming instigation with our brand, all that ladders up to our purpose of what we believe is in our DNA, that travel truly makes us better. And a lot of that's borne out through our campaign of Go and Smell the Roses, which hopefully many of you have seen. And I'm going to hopefully share, or will share at the end, 3 or 4 different things that we're doing as part of the Go and Smell the Roses campaign that really ladder up to those beliefs. So we'll take the next 35, 40 minutes to do that. And by the way, please make this interactive. I don't mind at all. Raise your hands if you have questions. Abby tells me you guys are a wily group, so I expect questions. So please, I don't mind at all. All right, so this is the landscape that we play in. We play in this landscape called the OTA industry, online travel agencies. So typically when we say OTAs, there's about 7 or 8 that really kind of get grouped in this core group. All of U.S. travel, strictly speaking of U.S., is about a $300 billion industry. OTAs represent about 15% of that. So this cluster right here is about 45 billion of the US marketplace, and so it's companies like Expedia, Hotwire, Hotels.com, Travelocity, Priceline, etc. The interesting thing about that group is Expedia has Hotwire and Hotels in their portfolio, Priceline has Booking.com, which you may or may not have heard of. They're relatively new to the US. And Orbitz and Priceline, or part of Orbitz and Travelocity, we're kind of our sole riders in that competitive group that sit among that core OTA set. But we're not without pressures outside of that, of course. Today with mobile computing and social media, as you're all aware, information travels just so swiftly. And so in a deal-driven industry, oftentimes we'll get beat out on price by someone who gets that latest price information over the mobile phone, even if people are particularly loyal to the brand. And then, of course, we've got suppliers that are really taking about a share point back per year in the industry away from us. So they represent about 25% of that total travel marketplace, and that's uptaking about a percentage point a year, and they're really pulling away from that OTA competitive set. But really what's been interesting over the past several years has been there's been all these new companies, new entrants and substitutes that really come in across this entire travel journey. So when I say the travel journey, it's pretty common in our industry. By the way, any travel folks in here? Any people associated with travel? None? Not one? Ah, a couple. Okay, good. So the travel journey, everyone talks about the travel journey, and that's really, at the point at which people start to dream about a trip, plan for it, take that trip, go inside of or actually wait for that trip and then share it upon return. And there's all these new companies that are popping up inside of that journey, as well as people that are just trying to meet the consumer at the point at which they're trying to book. I'll mention two here specifically. Kayak is a company that's growing by leaps and bounds to the point of about 30% year over year. And you may have seen that recently they just got acquired by Priceline. Of course, HomeAway is here in Austin. And Booking.com is a relatively new entrant to the US. And originally they came in just playing on Google search. They're a company out of the Netherlands. They had mastered what we call the digital shelf, and I'll talk a little bit about that very, very well. Oftentimes, if you'll search for a particular hotel in any given market, you're going to find Booking.com #1, and they've really understood the game with Google and played that particularly well. Now, they're starting to layer in some storytelling and some brand perspective with about 35 million in brand advertising in the US this year. So lots going to be coming out from them in the coming weeks. But like most industry, we're experiencing a lot of pressure. We're not immune from it whatsoever. And you're seeing a lot of these new and innovative companies come to market to apply that pressure. Many of you have probably seen this. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but we certainly I take pause on a couple of instances. One, I actually got to see this presentation out in Silicon Valley. So Mary Meeker, who's known as the queen of the internet, I love that label. She's with Kleiner Perkins, and she presented this about a year ago, and this is not uncommon for you, but beyond the facts just on the slide, I took away a couple things. One is both her and Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz, who were both kind of presenting this data, they were really bullish on the economy for America, and in part because of this quote up here where Mary says, we're kind of living through this once in every 50 years transition with mobile computing and mobile internet, and this is just a view of 100 years back, ever since the dawn of AM radio to the left in yellow, and now all the way up through mobile internet to the right. And you can see that the transition and penetration is actually sharper than when the internet first came out. But I just find these stats remarkable. And then again, this is probably 9 to 10 months old data at this point, but 1 in 3 people in the US, and this is approaching 40%, have a tablet or an e-reader. 1 in 6 people in the world actually now have a smartphone. And the stat that we pay attention to is 4x, we're seeing 4x the growth in Google for mobile search queries. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But certainly this informs a lot of what we do from a storytelling perspective in our narrative that we're trying to put out in the marketplace, and then more importantly, how we build personalization, innovation, and products for our consumers. And so, so where do people go when they start their travel journey? And so this is really interesting. I'm gonna start to now frame out, kind of how the travel journey works and the landscape. But everybody starts in Google. So 64% of people will actually start their experience in Google. And I sort of color-coded the dot labels down below. Here's the next secondary and tertiary sites. So we're represented there in that yellow dot for OTAs. But what you're seeing here with the example is as people go into Google, we're all showcasing and showing up right on that first page of search results. In this case, this is an example of Chicago hotels, but you'd see the same thing if we were searching for here, the Four Seasons in Austin. And this is it's really become a crowded and complex landscape, not only for the consumer, but frankly even for us as advertisers. And we call this landscape the digital shelf. I mean, there's so much activity that we do outside of online, be it TV and otherwise, but by and large, consumers, and many of you probably do this too, are going to start their journey in the Google environment. Well, the challenge is it's not always a clean and pristine landscape, and we'll talk a little bit about what Google's doing, but it's fiercely competitive, as this illustrates. And this is about 6-month-old data as well, but I thought it was highly useful because it talks about a particular ratio that we look into quite frequently. But you're seeing searches across the entire landscape increase by 24% year over year. So what you see to the left is each line of business that people may search on their destination or trip. So air, hotel, a package, or maybe a car cruise, all those are up 24%. And the remarkable thing about that is transactions really are growing in the industry. So you're seeing this look-to-book ratio really grow in travel, which really speaks to a lot of the confusion that consumers are having in the marketplace. And then, of course, off to the right, you're seeing a lot of, no different from many of the other industries I'm sure you cover, mobile has now precipitated a lot more mobile search queries, and we're seeing triple-digit growth. And in fact, in travel, we're seeing about 40% of shops now come through a mobile device, either a phone or a tablet, which up from a year ago was around the 23% range. So big shift. And this is our CEO, Carl Sparks, ripped this off his Match.com profile. Just kidding. He's married. He's married. He'll kill me. Don't tape that. So but Carl actually, last year he cited that he believes that 30 to 40% of our business would be conducted through a mobile device in about 5 years, and I think even today he would say he's very wrong. I think that 30 to 40% range is going to be reached in about a year or two. I mean, it's exploding that fast, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is what's interesting. So a lot of the OTA space, we'll talk a little bit about how we all go to market, but so this is just a trend over the past 5 years within Google, up through last year, of average cost per clicks. And I know probably all of you in your profession monitor some of this, and you're certainly looking at organic search rankings as part of the stories that you're trying to break through on a day-in, day-out basis. But so this is essentially the cost of distribution, or the cost of acquisition for us as we look to go get and acquire new customers. And what's interesting, as a result of the proliferation of mobile computing and a lot of that look-to-book ratio I was talking about, you're seeing really stagnant inflation for generic terms like hotels, as people go in and search hotels and hotels.com in this blue line. But for longer tail terms like hotels near Central Park, hotels near Town Lake in Austin, you're starting to see this big spike in inflation. Now this is only 2011 data, but the same thing is mimicked in 2012. So year on year now, we've seen 20+% spikes in average CPCs, which makes it much more difficult for us to go to market. And so this is something that we pay attention to. And again, I think just having a mobile device where now you're on ground, and a lot of people are booking their airfare up front, but they'll wait till they actually get to a physical location or destination before they book the hotel. You're starting to see a lot of these bookings and searches, therefore, come near more of these points of interest like a hotels near Central Park, and that's driving a lot of that demand, and therefore spiking our costs. So this is very important as we talk about how to go to market. And it's also important because Google, which we spend a ton of time with in their Silicon Valley offices, talking about their products, talking about the consumer experience, they are massively disrupting the category. So they recognize the fact that I just showcased to you. Not only is it becoming more expensive to get these customers, it's a really poor consumer experience. So they've launched 3 new products over the past year and have really shaken up the industry. So one is this product called Hotel Price Ads. So that's just making data and pricing and amenity or context-driven information with hotels more relevant in search results. And a lot of that information comes from companies such as ours that we feed to them, or they pull from us. But that's a new product, and you can see here on the left example. So now when you're searching for hotels in New York City as an example, you'll see a lot of that information showcased up in this organic search well. Hotel Finder is a meta product much like Kayak, except for hotels. So they're showcasing this a lot now in their search results, which impacts everything we do from the preceding slide, and so that pushes a lot of that data down and content and our ability to acquire customers. It's also made the experience for consumers a lot better because you can do with this map product here in the middle, you can kind of draw what's called a polygon points of interest or places you want to go, and it'll pull up the relevant hotels in that area. It's a much simpler experience. And then off to the right, Google acquired a company out of Boston a couple years back called ITA, and ITA provides scheduling and airfare data that shows up in surfaces really neatly organized in the organic search well. And all this is really meant to make it easier for consumers to search for relevant information, but it certainly causes massive disruption for the OTA set, including us, as we look to acquire more customers. And remember, this is a place where consumers actually start their journey, so it really shapes and informs how we go to market. I was pleased to see, however, when we did look, or when I looked for the Four Seasons in Austin here on their map product, if you actually pull up their hotel price ads product, there's a little drop down there next to that $399 price point. We actually showed up first, so it speaks to some of the shift that we've made with some of Google's new products. So proud of our team on that front. All right, so this is how most of us go to market. It's actually a relatively boring playbook. So I've been with Travelocity for about 2 years now, and one of the things that when I first came into the space, and I came from Nutrisystem in Philadelphia, highly relevant to travel and weight loss centers, and I got a jumpy clicker. So, but what I found interesting about the category was, you have these big marketing budgets. I mean, really big marketing budgets, $100 million, upwards to $1 billion plus. And by and large, everybody, and I mean everybody, does the same thing. We all put our ads in Google. We all do national television advertising. We all play on TripAdvisor and Kayak. That is pretty much it. And so here's just a distribution of all the things that we do across the space. But what I really find remarkable is, when we go to market for national TV advertising, we certainly were part of this. Really, most of the companies just have one or two spots or one or two things they're trying to communicate. Also, with the fact that I shared with you earlier, about 40% of all shops happen through a mobile device. We have transactions upwards of 25% that are happening through a tablet or mobile device. Less than 2% of all marketing budgets are really happening mobile. So it's a pretty interesting phenomenon. One I think that's going to change very quickly this year. But also, we're a travel industry. We're about destinations and local visitation. And none of us, very few, we actually were the first, I think, a few years to pilot some of this last year, notwithstanding some of the suppliers, but hardly anybody is in local advertising. So as an example, there's very little local presence or penetration for advertising Austin, as an example, as a getaway for people who live in Dallas. So I think we'll see some things change on that front as well. I might also add Booking.com, which is the outlier here. This is from last year. They were predominantly a 100% player in Google and in search. And now they've moved down in that red box on the left-hand side with TV. They've now announced that they're going to come into market with $35 million in brand advertising. And typically we see about $30 million to $75 million on national television among the kind of the core 8 brands there. So pretty vanilla playbook from a media perspective. And then you've seen this 4 times now, I think. So most of us really just kind of shout discounts and price warfare, and we've sort of created this condition for consumers to expect, when we're going to put the latest fare sale or latest hotel sale on, and we're really sort of all commoditizing the space. And as I mentioned, we were certainly part of that. And culprit to that party as well. Back in 2011, before my arrival, we launched a campaign for the first time since 2004 without the roaming Gnome, and it was very deal-centric, and we promoted summer vacations. And in fact, the Gnome's role changed quite frequently, whereas before he was interacting with maybe fellow travelers and scene, and he was part of a problem-solution type of equation. He was now used as almost an animated point of activation whenever we rolled out a promotion or a sale. So he sort of went from a traveler, and maybe even a travel enthusiast, to someone who is sort of a company spokesperson or shill for promotion, and that's exactly what we don't want them to be. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And by the way, you will see us with fare sales and hotel sales. In fact, we have one out now, but we want to be we want it to be subordinate to the broader narrative of, in this case, Go and Smell the Roses, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is a good way to kind of sum up a lot of what we were just talking about. I actually pirated this slide. This was from a Google Think Travel conference last year, and it was presented by Boston Consulting Group. But I do love this slide because it sort of shows the way things were and the way things are now. And I can even remember, you guys can't laugh, the days when we'd have a magazine and you get your Frommer's guide and you sort of plan your trip out. And even I can't recall going back to a slideshow day. I confess to that, but certainly had American Express traveler checks. I remember those days. But now we have all these pretty amazing online brands, and they've really popped up and stepped into points of needs across the entire travel journey. But this is really how it looks like. It's a really fragmented and complex architecture for a consumer, and so that's pretty confusing. But this is really how I like to sum it up for my team, and certainly what I think the industry problem is. So, just consider this: 13 websites. The average person takes 13 websites before they will actually pull the trigger on booking a trip. 42 hours. 42 hours it takes to plan a trip before you're going to book it. That's almost as long as an average trip itself. So, pretty phenomenal problem to go solve. And I might also add, you heard me mention this kind of look to book ratio, and so this is kind of an average across the industry. So it takes 1,000 lookers before the industry gets a booker. 3 years ago, that was 300. So it really speaks to the complexity that we're all taking part of in the space, Travelocity included, where we're just shouting new deals. We're not creating any loyalty or trust in the space. So it's a really interesting challenge to go solve. And this is one I kind of put forth for our team, that we must solve that 13 website, 42-hour conundrum and be the brand that can really break through with a proper narrative and story and create products, programs, and true innovation for the consumer across the entire travel journey. All right, who likes airplane? I get it. All right. So this is a summary of what I just covered. I mean, this is kind of how it feels some days. It's we have a very, very competitive landscape, and that digital shelf I talked about, it is crowded. It's very crowded, but unfortunately that's where consumers start. And with Google really shifting the way that consumers are going to shop and buy travel, particularly in a mobile world, it's incumbent upon us to get very smart on the technology that we deliver to consumers, the data that we're giving them, the proper pricing information, availability of rooms, and frankly, to the degree which we can, the proper narrative or story by which we give up a promotion or a marketing message in that world. And so we spend a lot of time on that. Everyone continues to play in the same media outlets, so predominantly national TV, TripAdvisor, Kayak, and Google. And really everyone is voicing a lot of the same price warfare and discount type messaging. But we believe we can break out. And so that's really what I want to show you guys today. I've got a few examples of how we think we can tell a different story. And it's in part because we have this amazing character, the Gnome. I don't know where he is at this point. There he is. And I just want to showcase you a couple examples of some things we set out to do this year, in part and in large part because we have such a great icon like the Gnome. But this is back to that travel journey. I really want to share a couple points because this informs a lot of the programs and soon-to-be products that we're launching and a lot of the innovation that we're trying to drive in the space. So this is, again, that travel cycle. There's a couple stats that I find phenomenal in here. So up front, when people are trying to think or be inspired or dream of the next place they're looking to go, 56% of people, 56% actually get inspired by, not just their friends, but the stuff that friends are posting online in a social network. So things like YouTube, a picture, Instagram, Twitter, etc. That stat blew me away, but on the back end of that, what I find more remarkable, I can assure you I am not one of these people. With 3 kids, there's no way I'll be able to do this, but 57%, and in fact I've seen this number as high as 75%, once per day on their trip. Once per day will actually post something online, which then goes back to that beginning journey or inspiration cycle for all your friends in your network. So this is truly a very meaningful social ecosystem, and one that we really need to take part of it. By the way, there's some brands listed here, and there are many more, but there are a lot of new brands that are popping up in the space that are meeting the needs of consumers, where frankly, OTAs just haven't done a great job. And so I highlight this area of booking, all the billions of dollars that we have in the space. This is where all the marketing firepower gets aimed today. So there's been, truthfully, very little innovation that expands outside of this booking window, be it in front of it or in back of it. In fact, many people and many of the OTAs have launched products where we've tried to expand outside of this set and haven't had much success. I know that Travelocity launched, Experience Finder a few years back, which is meant for people who didn't know or necessarily know where they want to go on a trip. You could come to our site, you could put in a few criteria, and we could give you some recommendations on where to go if you want a beach destination, a ski destination, or any type of vacation package. And truth be told, it was a really clunky experience, so we had to remove it. But I think you'll see a lot more innovation along this curve from OTAs, certainly us in particular, than what we've seen in the past. And Jeff Boyd, who is the CEO of Priceline, far be it for me to criticize him, he's created a phenomenal company. In fact, it's either the first or second largest market cap company in the world. Truly, they've done a great job in the space. And he says, if Priceline started to dedicate resources to enable travelers to dream, we would turn off the ones who come to book. So it sort of speaks to the mentality in the space. It's not a notion that we share. In fact, we think a little bit differently, but just wanted to point out that's how others are thinking about it in the space. But there are all these amazing signals in the social sphere, right? Consumers are telling us and sharing information like they never have before. So it's our duty, I believe, to really understand those signals and collect them and shape new products and programs for us to deliver the right travel product and travel experience along their journey. And so, many of you know The Amazing Race. In fact, I jumped on a plane this morning with, as my son calls him, Gnome the homie. And the flight attendant actually first, and this happens quite often, actually, the flight attendant said, "Are you on Amazing Race?" And we've been aligned with this program for, 8 years now. It really speaks to the power of that alignment and how powerful our brand is once we get in front of these travel enthusiasts and passionate travelers. But I love this, and this is from 2011, and truth be told, we won the same mark in 2012. But we were the highest product integrated recall among all brands in 2011 and 2012. And the reason why I love this one so much is that we actually dwarfed brands like, yes, that's right, dwarfed, pun intended. Yeah, oh, come on. Yeah. It's a Gnome. It's a Gnome. So, so we really beat out the likes of Coke and American Idol, who spend obviously millions and millions of dollars with partnered with the American Idol franchise. So really proud of that effort, and it really again speaks to the great alignment we have with this brand. But my favorite part of really this role in particular is getting to travel with that guy. So I'll even take today. So I got off the plane and I grabbed breakfast just down here on 2nd Street, and this is Rachel. Rachel was my server, and she was terrific. She wanted to take a picture with the Gnome. And she actually shared her recent travel experience, which she said she booked through Travelocity. I don't think she was lying to me, but she just went to London. And but it's just really neat. I actually tell my wife carrying the Gnome around is probably the first time and only time I'll ever feel like Justin Bieber walking around the airport. You really do get mauled. And to sort of speak to that, I can remember a time when I was really sick. And I had the guy I was carrying him around, and I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I actually had to hide him under my coat because people kept wanting to come up and talk to him. But it's fun. I have a lot of fun when people really want to come up and talk about travel and their last trip and share their journeys and experiences, and it makes the job quite worthwhile. But here's just a couple other pictures. This is the Gnome sharing a spirit. We're drinking, actually this was in Charleston, South Carolina for your students. Yeah. And this is actually my favorite. So this is 7 a.m. I had taken a flight out to San Francisco. This is a Virgin American gate attendant, and I was kind of checking my phone, half asleep down in DFW, and I hear this, "I want to kiss you." And I look up, and she's looking right at me, but of course she's talking about the Gnome. So we gave her the Gnome to kiss and took a picture, and she made her day. But this I love because, yes, Simon. So this is actually pretty interesting. Of course, we get to participate. I'm sure many of you have been or go to the media upfronts in New York, and this happened to be with Fox. But we go up, and these are presentations and parties where people are showcasing their celebrities to get us to participate in their programming. But really, when the Gnome was there, we had people like Vanilla Ice, Adam Richmond, Simon Cowell. All these people were coming up to us, wanting to take a picture and share travel stories with the Gnome. So really fun event. Simon did say, the Gnome did sing for him. He said the Gnome had a terrible voice and to get off stage, so we didn't take too kindly to that. All right, so you guys like videos? I got a few videos. Yeah? Yeah? God, you guys are kind of a sleepy crowd. Come on. Yeah. You told me you guys were lively. All right, so I want to share 3 things that we did this year. So this goes back in, let me take you back to the last 10 minutes. So again, I'm describing a pretty vanilla category, very competitive, hard to break out. A lot of people really sitting on that shelf, ready to poach consumers. But we wanted to do something a little bit different. And we wanted to really inspire people beyond the point which they thought of us when they wanted to book. And I say this quite often. I'm really proud to work for a company where, you'd have to really be inside our walls, but we really do believe that travel makes us better, and we live it. And what I mean by that is, we have employees that spend a lot of time with our Travel for Good property doing voluntourism. We actually, the entire company, and I mean the entire company, reads our opinion lab customer surveys every day that come to us. So when people have hiccups on the booking experience or their travel journey, there's really an authentic attempt to make it right. And we even have the Travelocity guarantee, which is beyond a price guarantee in the industry. That if your trip's not right, we're going to do what we can to make it right. And we can't always live up to that promise, but there truly is a authentic attempt to make that ladder up to who we are. And so that is a core DNA of our belief set. And we want to go and smell the roses to showcase that and really ladder up to what we're calling this kind of instigator brand in travel. We don't want you to just stop and smell the roses. We want you to go out and smell the roses. In fact, all of you here, many of you are visiting, go and smell the roses in Austin, Texas. It's a great town. But there are, before I show you this video, there's several points of uniqueness kind of to this campaign. So you heard me say up front that, really when people come to market and on air, they really showcase just 1 or 2 television spots. And we came live with 5 different spots when we showcased this first on the March 10th episode of Amazing Race. And I'm sure it's been done before, but we've researched and I can't seem to find it, but we actually launched all 5 spots in that hour of programming. So that is pretty unique, particularly for this category. And we really wanted to showcase what we call the wonder of places, kind of the uniqueness and beauty of different places, whether it's the Holi Festival or the Indian Paint Festival in Mumbai during Holi in India, or running the bulls or a beach vacation. And we didn't specifically name them by name, but we wanted to showcase really these different and interesting destinations to really pull people out. But I think that the thing I love most about this is the most interesting part of the whole thing is that the Gnome is really speaking directly right to you. And if you recall back, I suggested that the Gnome was really used as sort of this iconography when a promotion or a sale came in, and absolutely the wrong way to use that type of character. He's really a travel enthusiast and happens to be a fan of Travelocity, and we wanted him to really speak right to you and get you off your couch to go and smell the roses. And so here's our first 30-second spot. With that in front of you. How many of you are familiar, is everyone familiar with the Great Gnome Nabbing? Maybe not, maybe a few? Oh man, relatively few. Okay, cool. Well, at least we'll share some of the stories here. So we launched this program last year in October, and so the idea was, I mentioned up front that most people can recognize the Gnome, and in fact 70+% can link it to Travelocity, but most Americans in particular don't know why we have a gnome. It's actually relatively popular in Europe to have a garden gnome, and it's relatively common for your neighbors to steal that gnome, take them to a specific destination, i.e. travel with them, and then take pictures almost as ransom and send it back to your neighbors. So the gnome is highly associative to travel, particularly in European countries. But in the US, many people just don't know that backdrop of the story. So in 2004, the gnome was, as we like to say, whisked away from his garden and got to travel the world and became much wiser and gained much more perspective. And his life changed forever. And we wanted to return that favor, and the Gnome in particular wanted to return that favor. So we started the Great Gnome Nabbing. This is something that we'll do probably every couple of years. And we wanted one lucky person to experience a 30-day around the world trip. And so we were able to do that. And oops, I'm going to back up before I showcase this video. There should be another slide in between. But the winner was Ashley Castle out of New York. And she's this remarkable person. I would ask you, I would encourage you to look her up. She's now becoming a travel writer for Afar magazine and a travel blogger. But just an incredibly passionate person for our brand now. I was fortunate enough to go on the second leg. So we went from, started in New York, over to Rome, to Beijing, to Mumbai, to Rio, to Lisbon, and back to New York. And again, it was over 30 days. And it wasn't just going in destination and dropping them off at nice hotels and you guys will set you up on a couple things, go and Rome. We really wanted them to experience the culture. And so we did things like in Rome, they took gladiator training school, and in Rio they did salsa dancing, and in Beijing they actually got to go through kung fu lessons at a kung fu academies. But really interesting stuff that were unique to the culture. And again, it was all about really trying to change perspective, endear that spirit of roaming that ladders up to this travel makes us better brand and purpose. And I'm going to showcase a couple-minute video. I might also add, we had a film crew follow them on every destination. And so what we tried to do was really capture the narrative across each destination to share what this was all about. So here's a 2-minute clip from Beijing.